All right, today on the show, we have Adam Riddle, who is the co-founder and principal of Nexus Commercial Realty in Denver, Colorado. And let me tell you a little bit about Adam. Now, Adam is a skilled negotiator and has been part of over 500 real estate transactions worth in excess of $550 million in the multifamily sector. He has dealt in HUD, NNN, seller carry, as well as many low and no money down deals. He met no matter the type of deal or whether it's renovations, investment type, or strategic timing, Adam knows what it takes to maximize return on investment for his investors. He is also a proud volunteer for the Denver Active 2030 Children's Foundation, and he is also on the board of the Hope Committees. Adam is an active runner and loves playing softball, snowboarding, backpacking, and hiking, which is apropos for living in Denver. Find Adam at his website, which is nexus-cr.com. Once again, Nexus, Nexus -cr.com. Adam, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, you actually came recommended from, I think, several of our listeners. And I was telling, for everyone listening, I was telling Adam ahead of time, we get lots of requests from commercial agents, investors, wanting to promote a product or a service. And really, a lot of times we're just not sure what to do with that. And so we decided at this time, we're like, no, this guy's really, really exciting and fun. No pressure, of course, for you to perform for us, but I'm really excited because you were like, you're a favorite of our listeners. And so we're like, well, if our listeners tell us to do something, we always do it. But I'm really excited because, like, even at the company I'm at, which is really a traditional residential firm, we have about 700 realtors. The question that we get asked as much as really any question is, how do I break into the commercial world or the multifamily world? How do I handle investors? And I know we're going to talk about some of that today. So I'm really excited that you're here. But I would love to know about, you're in Denver. How did you get started? You've done 500 plus multifamily deals, but how did you get into real estate?
That's a funny story. I was living in the mountains, kind of being a ski bum, if you will. That's how I made it to Colorado. Supposed to be for one ski season and ended up being for 4, which is also very common up in the mountain
Sure.
communities. Gets pretty easy to that lifestyle. So when it came time to get a real job, fell in love with Colorado. This was where I was going to stay. Kind of came down to the city, and I wanted a career that had a high trajectory, and then I could really work really hard at and be paid off for that. But also was flexible. So I could go skiing and snowboarding and take some time off when I wanted to. So real estate was a natural draw. Commercial, it wasn't necessarily commercial real estate or residential real estate. I looked at development and doing all sorts of different things, and I actually answered an ad off Craigslist back when that was a place where you went and looked for jobs.
Sure.
For a successful commercial real estate team that focused on the multifamily industry, and responded to that ad and got a job interview. And for whatever reason, they liked me, and I got to join, luckily got to join a pretty good group of people that were pretty successful, and got to kind of be under them for a long time and learn the ropes that way.
Wow. And then when did you make the jump to found Nexus and start your own thing?
So that came three and a half years ago or so. So after 10 years at a local shop, and it was a great 10 years, we just decided, my business partner and I, who had also been there for about 10 years, decided it was time for a change for us, and kind of looked at a lot of different avenues and came back to starting our own shop. And we're at 22 people, an office here in Colorado Springs, and this year we will do probably about 85 to 95 apartment transactions this year.
Wow, that's amazing. Good for you guys. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about the sort of the multifamily market right now. I know here in Chicago, I know about it simply because I'm here with a lot of brokers who are participating in it. But are most of the deals that your team put together, are they in the Denver area? Are they in Colorado? Are they in other states? Like where do you guys look?
Yeah, so we're a small local boutique shop. So we're a little different than maybe some of your national commercial brokerages. in a sense of we do things, our transaction sizes are anywhere from a duplex to we sold like an 1,100 unit portfolio a couple of years
Wow.
ago. So we will do kind of the whole gamut, where a lot of the institutional bigger shops will only kind of focus on the more units. So we cover the whole front range in doing that. We can go from Fort Collins and Greeley down to kind of Pueblo, which is, I would say 95% of the transactions in our state are going to be in that kind of corridor.
Sure.
And again, we'll do a 4 unit all the way up to, I think the biggest deal we've closed this year was 128 or 130 unit. So
Wow.
we kind of like actually starting out people in the smaller number of units. It's a little easier transaction. It's a little less cutthroat. It's a lot of beginning investors. So that's where we start a lot of our new people out, is in some of the smaller transactions, and you kind of learn the business that way.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I know probably a lot of our listeners and viewers are probably thinking, okay, I'm a traditional residential agent. I would love to find those kind of opportunities, or I have clients that I might want to even just introduce the idea of multifamily investing. But a lot of times, I think agents oftentimes maybe think the question they'll ask about how to get started is probably not really the right question, which is, how do I find these investors? And it's been my experience, and I want to get your opinion on this, that finding the deal is the hard part. Finding the investors is actually kind of the easier of those two steps. Do you agree with that?
100%. I can tell you, we get calls quite often from agents, commercial and residential, and it's like, hey, I've got a buyer. Send me all of your off-market stuff. It's like, and that's the hard part of this business. And we have a database that we've built out of all the ownership and emails and cell phone numbers over a long period of time. That's our biggest asset.
Sure.
And the people that we have calling out of it. So, and usually you will know somebody that either is investing or wants to invest, especially if you're selling single family homes at some point. You will run into somebody that probably already invests or would like to get into investing. So finding somebody that has the financial capability or the wherewithal to want to invest is typically not the hard part. It's getting them the properties and or the inventory is the challenge.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I always tell our agents, when they ask, and we have some programming here at our firm to teach agents a little bit more about investments. But I always say, biggerpockets.com is a pretty good place if you're brand new to the idea of multifamily investing, or any sort of real estate investing, really. But they've got a great resource, to get started. And I don't know what the multifamily sort of market looks like, there locally for you. Do you have a lot of residents that are doing, here in Chicago, it's very popular, what they call house hacking? For our listeners who are not familiar with that is, that's where you typically buy, a 3 flat, a 4 flat, and you live in one, and then you rent out the others, and it sort of pays for itself. Is that popular in the Denver area?
It's popular. It was more popular probably 7 or 8 years ago. I tried to convince my wife to do the same thing, and she vetoed a few different places. But back in the day, it's becoming harder and harder as investments have become more and more popular. Especially back when there was kind of bank owns and short sales, it had to go to an owner occupant first in some of those instances. So it gave an opportunity for somebody to come in and buy that 3-plex, that 4-plex, and live in one. Now, if something's decently priced, it's going to come and go so quickly. And it's going to be somebody putting 30-40% down, or in some instances paying cash for it. So somebody that's trying to do a owner-occupied first-time home buyer loan to get into a 4-plex, it's just so hard for them to compete with the amount of investment money that's flowing in the Denver market right now. So it's popular. I think what we're seeing more of is people trying to find these neighborhoods that allow the accessory dwelling units. So you can build kind of a garage with an apartment over it
Right.
in the back. They just rezoned an entire neighborhood in Denver to allow for those. And part of that is trying to solve affordability in a lot of our major cities. And I'm sure Chicago's dealing with the same thing. We're dealing with it at a rampant pace. And So I see more people kind of looking for that opportunity, and maybe I can buy the single family and then add on this garage in one bedroom apartment above it as a way to get some extra income long term.
Yeah, that makes sense. I want to go back to this idea of we were both agreeing that finding the transaction, finding the deal is the more challenging versus finding the investor. So probably I should have gone to the next logical question is, okay, how do you find the deal? And here's my real first question is what percentage of the transactions that you're involved in, or what would you estimate the percentages of homes or multifamily homes that go on the MLS versus finding off market?
That's a good question. That's probably the biggest, I don't know, secret, if you will, but about the commercial business in general, that a lot of it never hits
Sure.
any website. And the MLSs of the world, or the LoopNet, which kind of the commercial MLS,
Yeah.
and CoStar, and a lot of it doesn't hit that. It's a little harder when you get into the smaller number of units, just because that's such a broad buyer spectrum. And honestly, it's better to put that out there to the open market, because in advertising that, it's best for the sellers, because it may be a Remax agent has the best buyer willing to pay the most money than somebody that we have. But in our world, and this may be different for some other brokerages, but our stuff is done in-house and or off market, probably 60 to 65% of the time.
Wow. Now, without giving away your secret sauce, and I'm certainly not going to ask you to tell us exactly how you find these off-market properties, but do you have any suggestions for listeners that are like, okay, so let's assume a lot of the stuff, if I only have MLS access, and by, probably our listeners, most of them don't have CoStar LoopNet access, and a lot of that stuff doesn't hit there anyway. But how might they be going out to, what suggestions would you have to go out and look for these deals? Obviously, they're going to look on the MLS. Outside of that, do you have any suggestions for agents that want to find, people who might be looking to sell these kind of investments?
I think it's basic stuff. It's, we pick up the phone a lot.
Yeah.
That's just like old school. We just dial for dollars, if you will.
Sure.
And that's what we do a lot of. We do some mail marketing in general, but for the most part, it's dialing for dollars. And people come back to us repeatedly because I can see a deal on MLS, and I can see a deal, on LoopNet, and understand that, hey, this makes sense. And so I think we add value for people to continue to try to come back to us. So I would suggest for any residential agent looking to kind of dabble, if you will, just try to educate yourself as much as you can on income producing real estate, so you can add value to that person. So they will say, okay, like, this is a good person to work with, and be able to ask the right questions, and be able to point to, hey, you can raise rents over here because this is what the neighborhood's charging. And it's a little bit more in depth than selling residential. Not that residential doesn't have its things that I have no idea how to do. I've never sold a house, but it's a lot more of a math problem. So trying to understand that math problem, and what is a down payment for a 4-unit, what are interest rates, and just trying to grasp as much as you can that knowledge going into it. And then if you make that call to somebody like myself, you have an interested client, you just sound more educated, and that usually means that your client is hopefully ready to go, and be able to answer questions. So we've kind of all been taught over my career of like these 5 or 6 questions, and it's, what's the last deal your client bought? Is the money ready to go? Are they in a 1031 exchange? What are they looking for? And if you can't typically answer those 5 or 6 kind of basic questions, it sounds like you need to go back and do a little bit more homework on this potential client, because if they're that legit, we should have kind of really good knowledge of what they're exactly looking for. Like, somebody's just like, they'll buy anything. That's typically not the case.
Right.
It's just, Chicago and Denver, they're big cities, and they have tons of different neighborhoods and pockets, and ones with higher crime and lower crime, and different returns expectations, and all of those. And don't be scared to dive in if you're a residential agent that's really got somebody that wants to buy a property, and ask a bunch of questions, because the more information you can have on the front end, the higher success rate that you can have.
Yeah, we even get calls here at our firm from investors just randomly who call us or for whatever reason find us, even though that's not really our main specialty as a brokerage. But we get this people who call, and I'm sure you get these calls too, which is like, I'm looking for a foreclosure. What do you have? You know, lots of things like that. And it's like, oh wow, well if it was, I wish it was that easy. I don't know. Maybe it's different in Denver, but I suspect it's not. You know.
No. Yeah, well, in May, it was like everybody just assumed everything was going to go right back to the bank during the beginning of COVID. And it's like, doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
Maybe stuff will, but it's going to take a while to cycle through before we get to that point. And honestly, we've actually were discussing last week. I mean, we had dropped sales dropped a little bit percentage wise, sales prices maybe 2-3% for 90 days, and I think they're actually above where they were pre-COVID at this point. We're already above that, so it's a hyper competitive market, and yeah, it's an interesting and dynamic thing to be in on a daily basis. Whoa, there we are.
There you are, Adam. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened there. I think our whole office internet just went down for a quick second. I have no idea what happened. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no problem.
I think you finished right when it froze. You would just finished a sentence. So I apologize if you kept going there.
Was my answer that bad that we just stopped right there?
I was like, cut the interview. No, it was. I just yelled over to the rest of the team, and everyone's like, "Yeah, the internet went down for a second. Very strange. Sorry about that." Okay. No, you're doing great. But yeah, you know, it's funny. Speaking of, you know, we're talking about finding investors, and then finding properties. And finding properties, my boss is a multifamily buy and hold investor. He himself has somewhere between 30 and 40 properties. And he, you know, he's done everything from going door to door. You know, he sees a for rent sign, you know, calls the phone number or maybe knocks on the building. Usually the owner probably doesn't live there, but he'll ask, well, who owns it? And, you know, it's a lot of, you're right. It's a lot of those old, seemingly outdated techniques that work, because you might have these, you know, longtime older owners who might still just be throwing the for rent sign in the window when they need to rent out a unit. It might not be going up even on Craigslist, right? Or Zillow or apartments.com or any of that. So you do have to be a little bit more creative, I think, to sometimes find these opportunities, and then being able to then find the owner is also can be challenging, even if you know the location. It's not always the easiest thing to get in touch with the owner. But yeah, we always tell our agents that if you find the transaction, you find somebody willing to sell, you know, the investors will come calling if you can find a good opportunity.
Yeah, exactly. And then, like I said in the beginning, you'd be shocked. You know, I think as a residential agent, you're definitely, you know, if you're trained good and you're a high producing agent, you're asking for referrals from people you're selling and helping buy homes, but you probably rarely ask if they own income producing real estate, because that's just not your lane. So just starting to ask that a little bit more too could lead to, oh yeah, I've got this fourplex. I was thinking about selling this for this duplex. And, you know, so I think just retraining your brain a little bit to ask those certain questions when you have the opportunity to do it.
Well, you said something very important that I want to touch on. It really, this episode, part of what I was bringing Adam on for was, as I thought, oh, this will be great because we have so many agents that want to break into the investment space and learn how to service those clients. There is something really to be said for, you know, Adam said something earlier that probably might have even gone unnoticed. I picked up on it because, well, if you were listening, you heard it, but we didn't really talk about it, which is, he goes, I've really never sold a home. Same sort of thing that if you're a residential real estate agent, a traditional broker, and you want to put in several years to really understand the multifamily market, which you absolutely can do, and you can build that skill set over time. But if it was me and I was a traditional broker, I would just want to hand it to you and say, you know, this is your lane, to use your words, and this is what you guys do better than I'm going to be able to do it. And then, you know, maybe you work out some sort of referral agreement, and then hopefully if a transaction comes your way that you don't want, that's more on the traditional home purchase single family side, that maybe I'm sure you refer those out to agents as well.
Yeah, and that's always a path to go. I mean, look, if you're running and gunning in the residential side, and you run across somebody that has that investment need, you know, sometimes it is best to refer it out. And I've done some videos and written articles about it. I mean, to me, it's all about adding value. So if a friend of mine came and said, "Hey, I want to sell my home," I don't add any value to that. I've never done an open house. I don't know how to talk that talks. I don't add any value to my friend. So I would say, here's a couple of people that I know good in the space, but it's not me. Yes, and at
Right.
least in Colorado, it's the same license. We have the same exact license here in Colorado, but I don't add any value to that. So I think just understanding if you add value to that, and if not, finding somebody that hopefully can help you add value. I mean, we get a lot more crossover in multifamily, especially just because we
Sure.
do have the duplexes and fourplexes and sixplexes, and there's a lot of crossover. But when you get into office leases and I mean, those things are very complicated, and one paragraph can really screw somebody.
Yeah.
So I would just be careful if you are a residential agent getting into some of the commercial stuff, that you're maybe doing more harm than you are good for your client, and just understanding if it's something that you can really help. And there's nothing wrong with trying to learn a new facet. I know our shop's happy to pay referral fees and happy to keep people involved at whatever length they want to keep involved, and that's a good way to learn. But that's always an option as well. And yeah, I've bought and personally sold 3 homes, and I've never done it
Didn't do
myself.
it yourself.
No, I don't want to deal with that.
Well, there's an old saying too, and it's not totally applicable, but it's well, no, you know what I was gonna. It's really not applicable. I was gonna say it's an old expression that's like an attorney who represents himself as a fool for a client. That's not exactly apropos to what we're talking about, or apt rather. But it speaks to this point of working within your skill set and then being willing to. I mean, you just said it. You said if my best friend needed help selling a home, I have people to refer to. And that's probably, like you said, are you adding value just by taking the listing? Well, maybe, but probably not, right? Because that's not what your specialty is. And so I'm a big fan, just like you said, of making, sending it to somebody who can do a better job than me, earning a referral commission, wiping my hands sort of clean at that point, and going back to focus what I do best. But that being said, this is a skill that people can develop too, but it does take time. And I think the more you can hang out with other brokers who do investments or other just investors in general, there's so many meetups, there's so many online. Well, now everything's of course virtual, but there's so many online communities like Bigger Pockets and Facebook groups and meetups, and where a lot of this you can really start to learn, the lingo, the talk, how to calculate some of the metrics that are used. And that's, I imagine, where firms like you guys really come in handy. That's your secret sauce, is the ability to see opportunity and then to present that to your network of investors.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and I started doing all those things when I started. I attended, there's a local guy that does kind of like learn how to invest, and I would go to his luncheons and I would go to different breakfasts, and just trying to be around people that were either in the business or trying to get in the business, and just learning the lingo and how they talked. And I think, to your point, it takes a while to get everything down. It's not something you can do kind of one deal or one transaction and kind of understand the business. But if it's something that somebody wants to develop that skill set, you got to put the time and the effort into it. But it's not rocket science, but it does take some time.
Well, it's interesting. I wanted to ask you about multifamily. You had written this. We always do a pre-interview ahead of time, and Adam had written something that I thought was kind of interesting, which was, and something again, I'm not a multifamily investor myself, so I really just wouldn't have thought of this. But he had mentioned that, and I'm curious how often this happens, where a multifamily property has been passed from generation to generation, and then all of a sudden, whoever owns it at the moment might be saying, hey, this isn't really what I want to be doing. I don't know that I want to manage and deal with these renters, or maybe I don't even live in the area, but I inherited this from my father or mother or whoever. Does that happen quite a bit? Is that common, where you see people who are inheriting these properties and then sort of not sure what they want to do with it?
Yeah, it's in most tax reasons, and I'm not a CPA obviously, but you get a stepped up basis upon getting the property passed to you. So a lot of people, that's the way they avoid taxes. They just wait till they pass away, and then it goes to the next generation. Oftentimes, if it's not done properly and not set up great, it turns into more of a fiasco than it does, because one sibling wants to do this and one wants to hold on to it, and one thinks the rent should be $1,000 when they're at $600, and it just turns into more infighting than anything. And so it's a bit of a challenge. It's a bit of a challenge to try to deal with all the different personalities that you're dealing with. And a lot of times it does end up being a sale, just because that's the easiest way to make everybody whole and everybody go do what they want with their money. So we definitely do see it. It's usually more intricate, because there's usually multiple attorneys involved. And again, they're usually at that point because they can't agree on what to do with the asset or assets that they've been inherited. So there's usually some hard feelings and some different things going on that just add layers of complexities to it. And you just got to be patient and try to make everybody as happy as you can throughout the process. But it's an interesting thing that, I wouldn't say is rampant, but is, we see a few times a year, and it's always a fun transaction.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because a lot of agents, I think, when they transition, if they transition from residential to, well, it really does, but traditional single family to multifamily, they're like, I'm tired of dealing with the drama of the single family. It's too emotional. It's too difficult. I just want to deal with level-headed investors. And of course, that's probably a lot of times what happens. But, the person selling the property might have all sorts of emotional challenges around it, whether it's, family and fighting, because you're right. Probably a lot of these properties are handed down for tax purposes. And so just, if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about on the multifamily side. A lot of agents listening also oftentimes want to get into multifamily because they also want to get into property management, right? They say, that's another way I can build a recurring stream of income. I don't know if your firm does a lot of property management or if you guys outsource that, but can you talk a little bit about property management and that opportunity?
Sure. So let me hit on something you said, like the non-emotions. You need to get a step above what we do, is more institutional, to get non-emotional. Ours
Sure.
is still emotional. They're still I would like to say it's a little less emotional than residential real estate, but it definitely still has heightened emotions, because you are dealing with individuals, and it's a lot of times their own money. And it's a big chunk of money, and
it's a big purchase.
So it is when you get up to the next level, that's playing with other people's money, and it's very much a math problem, and it's a little less emotional. But so property management, we do not personally do property management in-house. Just a business decision we made when we started our company. I think it's a good way to learn the business. When I was starting out, some of the first few deals that I personally invested in with some partners, I ended up managing. So I understand what it's like to get a call in the middle of the night for a leak, and cleaning the boiler rooms and the heat going out inevitably on a holiday, because that's when it always goes out.
Sure.
So it helped me learn the business that much better by managing some. I think I had a couple 4 units and a 7 unit at one point. And I was the leasing agent. I didn't do the repairs, but I got the calls to get me to make the repairs. And so I think it's a good way to learn the business, especially if it's somebody that's trying to continue to understand it. And I think it's a good way to continue to broaden broaden the spectrum. And it's a value add if you have somebody that's kind of a first time investor. Hey, I'll go help you find this property and I can help you manage it. I know Colorado has been cracking down very much on management, and you got to have your ducks in a row and make sure your paperwork is very in line if you're going to do third party, because they've had some instances of some fraud in the last couple of years in the property management world here, at least in Colorado. So they're cracking down pretty hard to make sure if you're doing third party property management, you're not commingling funds and doing things of that nature. So.
Yeah, it's an interesting choice. It's an interesting choice when somebody, a realtor, is working with a buyer to determine, like, okay, they're purchasing this multifamily property. Do I want those 2 a.m. phone calls, or saying the boiler's out, or am I happier passing that off to another management company and still earning some sort of referral commission, if that's even possible, where somebody practices. And then the other optional revenue stream is in rentals, right? So if the agent, there's a lot of revenue opportunities. It's really a matter of what do you want to spend your time doing. And I think that's a really cool thing about investments is you're going to have renters that come and go. Those are opportunities for the agent if they decide they want to help secure the tenant. Obviously property management opportunities there, or I want to pass that off to other people and just look for the deals and connect buyers to sellers.
Yeah, I mean, those are all great points. I mean, we have definitely seen people that manage smaller properties in good neighborhoods. The natural progression of a lot of those tenants is to a house, their first time home buyers. And hopefully, if you've treated them well and been a good manager for them, and you've asked the right questions and let them know if you ever get to that point, I'd love to have the opportunity to talk to you. You might be able to, by managing some smaller apartment assets, you might be able to pull out a few clients out of that as well. So there is a lot of different ways you can skin the cat. To your point, it's where do you want to put the most time and effort? Because it all, if I was to do residential, I'd have to redo a business plan, but I'm going to go all in, and I'm going to figure out how I can be successful in that. So kind of got to pick what you want to do and where you want to put your time and effort. And I think you can be successful in real estate. It's an amazing income and wealth generating business to be in.
It really is. And there's just so many opportunities, and you get to choose what you like to do. And your firm is obviously hyper focused, and so many firms try to do everything, as you know, and it's that old expression, and it doesn't mean other firms can't be successful doing lots of different things, but that whole jack of all trades, master of none is I've certainly found that to be true in my own life, and even here at our business is we don't step outside of our sort of narrow focus of what we can support for our agents, because if an agent says, oh, by the way, I've got a $75 million commercial development deal, we're like, please take that somewhere else, because we have no idea how to do that. But if it's anything on the residential side, we're good, even if it's multifamily. But that's a really important, I think, is to explore and learn for our listeners and viewers. This is a great opportunity. Join Bigger Pockets. Go to some of these meetups virtually and learn about investments in multifamily. Multifamily is so closely connected to single family. It really is about a half step difference. It's a lot more complicated for sure, and there's a lot to learn. But boy, the people buying those single families or rather, the people buying the multifamilies also have single families probably as well. So this is an opportunity that you can, if you take a couple of years to really sort of learn, you can then bring this to your everyone you've sold a home to. It's like, hey, have you ever thought about house hacking? Oh, you're not familiar with that? Let me talk to you about that. Here are some opportunities that I've found if you're interested, kind of thing. Or even better, just hand it off to someone like Adam, who already has the database of investors, who already has, properties. And this is all he lives, eats, and breathes. And in fact, we should mention this because we have listeners from all over the country. We have, about 20,000 people every episode listen to our show, from places like Denver, of course, and everywhere else. But if there is anyone out there who's an agent who might want to refer business to you, or who's an investor, or a property owner who might be looking for a firm to help them with these multifamily investments, we'd love to, make sure that your information is out there. But how should somebody, if they want to reach out to Nexus and you, how should they reach out?
I mean, I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. Love to connect on LinkedIn, chat on there. My email, a Riddle, Riddle, at Nexus, NEXUS-CR.com is my email. Or all my contact information is on our website. I love to talk business. It doesn't even have to be about multifamily. So happy to chat, happy to give you my 2 cents on certain things. I meet with a lot of people trying to get in the business and trying to find their way in this vast world of commercial real estate. It seems like it's very very hard and non-attainable sometimes to break into it from the outside, but it's more about networking and getting to know a few people, and that goes a long way.
Yeah, boy, I couldn't agree more. What a great place to wrap up. So everyone who's listening, who is interested in getting more information about this, start that educational process, and call someone up who is in your local area, who does what Adam does. And if you're in the Colorado area and you think you might have some opportunities for Adam, or you just want to get some advice, let's reach out. But Adam, it is Thanksgiving week, so I am going to let you enjoy your Thanksgiving week with your loved ones, and of course, for everyone listening, we hope hopefully you're able to spend some time with people you love, whether it's virtually or in person, if you're lucky enough to be able to do that this year. And hope everyone, of course, is staying safe. But on behalf of our listeners and our viewers, we want to thank Adam Riddle from Nexus for being on our show. This was awesome and really, really helpful to our listeners. So on behalf of them, we say thank you to Adam. And Adam, on behalf of Adam and myself, we want to thank all of our listeners and viewers as well for continuing to support our show. We just ask everyone to do 2 quick things before they get on to our next episode, which is tell a friend. Think of one other agent that could benefit from hearing this interview with Adam, and pass a link over to our website, which is keepingitrealpod.com. Or if they're a podcast listener, just have them pull up any podcast app, search for Keeping It Real. We'll pop right up. And the second thing is to follow us on Facebook. So Adam's big on LinkedIn. We are much bigger on Facebook. We are also on LinkedIn as well. So if you go to our website, you'll see the links there. But on Facebook, the address is facebook.com/Keeping It Real Pod. And the main reason to go there, well, there's 2 main reasons. One, we post these interviews as we're recording them live right there on our Facebook group. So you can actually watch them. You don't have to wait for us to produce them. And also every day we find an article that was written specifically to help agents grow their business, and we post a link to it. That's all we post there, and we post like 1 joke a day. That's literally all we do. So if you're looking for good information about how to grow your business and you want to see our interviews in real time, that's the place to do it. Adam, thank you so much for being on the show. You came highly recommended. It did not disappoint, and we really appreciate it. So thank you so much, and we'll see everyone next time. Thanks, Adam.
Thank you.